has lots of lived experience that he may be able to tell you about this evening. And you can further introduce yourself, please. This is the third time I think we've had you speak.
Yes,
We did the
yes.
second time for the summer program, and then we did a big seminar kind of thing on opioid use disorder at a church, and right before the pandemic closed everything down, end of February 2020, with a panel, and we had about 200 people there. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Take it away.
Thank you for having me. Are you okay with I speak without mask?
Yes.
Sir.
Yeah.
I'm vaccinated.
Yeah.
I like the respect.
We're back.
So, again, my name is Ramon Cruz. I work for the City of Philadelphia, the Managing Director's Office. And I work in the behavioral health field with the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disabilities. I love doing this, especially with this class. Again, this is like my third, my fourth time doing it. And there's the reason why is the foundation that you have, the Christian foundation. It is an honor, especially to give all the glory to God. And it was my pathway is spiritual. I know you hear a lot of AA, NA. I don't knock none of them. I think any pathway is great. My pathway is spiritual. I trust God. God has brought me and His purpose. I do His purpose. And I believe that's it. That I'm fulfilling His purpose. Again, I am a person of lived experience. I am a person in long-term recovery. I have 5 years in recovery from substance use disorder and mental health challenges. Right? I was born and raised in Kensington. Sometimes when people say Kensington, you cringe up. You know, I don't feel it. It's my home, it's been my home. I've seen it and it's good, and I've seen it and it's bad. And at one point in my life, I was part of the problem. Today, I feel so blessed to be part of the solution. You know, I give my all to this community, because this community at one point gave me my life. So growing up, I grew up in a really, really good family. I was adopted after 5 months. I didn't know that until I was a teenager. And I do know my biological parents. One of them has passed away. And I ask God every day to give me the grace and the mercy to forgive them. Very hard. I'm not going to lie. I fall short of His glory every day. You know, but my goal every day is to be a better man than I was yesterday. Right? And I'm still working on trying to be that forgiving person. But the human side in me really still hurts. So, but you know what? I also look at it this way. They gave me to some loving people who are my parents. They gave me everything that I needed. And my father gave me everything that I wanted also. He was very supportive. My mom worked at Goldenberg Peanut Chews. Anybody like that candy? I love that candy. I still love that candy. And my father worked at the racetrack, which is now called Park Casino. And I told you, my dad to me was everything. My dad had an S on his chest and a cape. He was Superman to me. You know, very disciplined, very hard, didn't show a lot of affection. His way of showing affection was smacking you in the butt, telling you, yo, get your stuff together, get it right. You know, very disciplined. I can tell you, I've never heard my father say, I love you. Pull my ear, maybe. That's the way he showed me. But I knew he loved me. I knew he loved me. He provided for the family. He worked sometimes 2 jobs just to provide. He provided, him and my mother provided me with an awesome education. I went to Catholic school all my life. Went from kindergarten to 8th grade at St. Peter's Apostle on 5th and Girard. And then went to high school at Roman Catholic in Broad and Vine. I am a proud Cahillite. I think it's the best school in the city. That's just me, I think. I tell you, the morals and values that this school has taught me. Took a hiatus in a little bit of my life, but then it showed up later on. So when I was growing up in school, because of all those factors, of my dad always taking care of me, I was very spoiled. So kids, right? Kids can be a little mean sometimes, and I don't mean nothing bad over there. You know what I mean? I love you. God bless you. But growing up, you know, I got teased a lot, which what today we call bullying, right? And I remember being teased so much because I was so spoiled, right? I didn't have to learn how to fight. I didn't have to learn how to do nothing. I'll get my dad on you. You know, if the teacher got me, I'm gonna get my dad. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it didn't work out. My dad, it straightened me out. But you know, growing up, so in grade school, I always looked for respect. I got to high school and I noticed that a lot of the athletes got respect. I was a really good athlete, good basketball player, whatever it was, football player, those are the ones that get the athlete. I mean, the athlete that gets all the respect, right? So I was a really, really good baseball player. That was something my dad, since I was 8 years old, I played baseball. It was really instilled in me. During the summertime, I would be sent to Puerto Rico for the summer with my grandmother and play baseball out there. And my dad was my coach at one time. And my dad was a pretty good baseball player when he was young. And one of the things that really pushed my dad to push me was, my dad had a son, my stepbrother, and he was signed by the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the night that he got signed by the Pittsburgh Pirates, he decided to go out and celebrate. And drove and had an accident. They were drinking and driving, and he passed away. He never got to live his dream. So my dad really pushed it on me. Like, he wanted me to really be that. And at one point, I didn't see a lot of that. I just wanted to make my dad happy. So I got to high school, and I tried out for the team in 9th grade as a 9th grader. And I was the first 9th grader in Roman Catholic history to make the varsity team. I also made all Catholic, all city, honorable mention. I was pretty good. And it brought me a lot of attention, a lot of times. Now I was being respected. Hey, that's that guy. That's my man. You know, it also permeated into my neighborhood. So my neighborhood, right, Kensington, not too many good baseball fields, and if you really wanted to do something when I was growing up, you had to go play in them good parks. You had to go play out of Kensington area. And a lot of the times, during that time when I was growing up, there was a lot of racism going on. You wasn't allowed into the white neighborhoods to play baseball unless you was really good. So I was allowed to go to those neighborhoods, Bridgeport, Upper Northeast, because I played good baseball. So I kind of got a little bit of privilege to do that, you know. And a lot of scouts were seeing me, and as I was going through my high school, I was being noticed a lot. In my senior year, I was offered a lot of scholarships to go to school. I was asked to go out to some tryouts. At that time, the Florida Marlins and the Colorado Rockies were coming on board. and I was asked to go out and try out for them. But one of the decisions that I had made was I was asked to try out for the national team in Puerto Rico. And that was my dream. As I told you, every year I went to Puerto Rico. And it was instilled in me. So I decided to go out there and try out for the national team. I was out there a couple months, and I got homesick. At that point, I'm a teenager. I had a girlfriend, high school sweetheart, which I was with her since 6th grade, grade school, 6th grade, and we went through high school. She went to Hallahan, I went to Roman. So we were just, and I left. When I left, I was like, wow, I know I wasn't a young kid no more, and I really missed home. So without my father knowing, I came home. And you could just imagine how he felt. And he was like, why did you do that? You have it all. You're going to be here. Just say. And I was like, just didn't want to be away from home. So that kind of really tore him apart. But what tore him apart even more was the decision I made after that. So here I go again looking for respect and wanting to be respected. And I gravitated towards the older guys in the neighborhood, which were doing illegal activities, selling drugs and doing some other things. I noticed that they got a lot of respect, right? But I didn't know later on that respect really wasn't respect, it was fear, the community feared them, right? So I started to do that and really broke my dad and my mom's heart. I was doing it right in the neighborhood. I used to drive by, and I still had those marks in my hands. I put my head down, and very embarrassed, but continued to do what I did. And that started a period of almost 30 years of incarceration, in and out of incarceration. I would go into jail, do a couple of years, and come right back out and do the same thing again. Back then, there was this movie, and everybody probably heard about it, Scarface, and that was my idol. When he said the world was mine, I thought the world could be mine, and I was following that. That was like, I'm going to be the next Scarface. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get the respect that this man got in this movie. And I had that in my head. And it continued to send me to jail. And every time I would go to jail, I said, I got to do it a little different this time. Maybe I'll do it a little different. Maybe I won't use a beeper. Maybe I'll use something else. But I'll do it a little different. And every time I wind up back in jail, I said, I got to do something really different this time. So it continued. And I wind up fathering 5 children in all this time. And I say fathering because I've never been a dad. At one point, my oldest daughter, called me a sperm donor. No respect. Really, really, really rough. I wind up in just 2 marriages that really didn't even make any sense. And I hurt the individual mentally, not physically. I didn't believe in that. That's not what my father taught me. But mentally, I really broke their hearts. I really broke them in my life. So anyway, I continued to go into incarcerations and everything. And it was during one of my incarcerations, right, that I received news that my father had passed away. Devastating. So devastating. Sometimes when I think about it, still the feelings. My dad, when he passed away, I put that on my shoulders. I had so much anger. I was angry because he never said goodbye, that he chose to leave. Right? I was so depressed. I wasn't going to see my father ever again. didn't get to say sorry. I had a lot of resentment and guilt because I said, did I take my father to his grave with the lifestyle that I chose? It was really, really hard. Really hard. I wasn't able to go to the funeral, to say goodbye, go to the burial, because I had a really high bail. So that took a toll on me also. And again, I went and got advice where I should not got it, and I started to do opiates in prison to mask the hurt, the pain that I was going through. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to think about it. And every day I used just to mask that pain, the guilt, the pain, the depression. Every time I woke up in the morning, instead of going to chow, which is, going to eat food, I went and used drugs. And my day consisted in prison of using drugs all day. And I know maybe some of y'all probably say, prison, how do you do that? Yes. There's maybe more drugs in prison than in the streets sometimes. And I continue to do it every day. I wind up doing several years, and when I came home with a food substance use disorder. Now I was coming home and selling drugs, not for the motive that I had before. I had to just continue to stay well and mask the pain. And in doing this, it took me to some really, really dark places. And when I say dark places, I'm talking about sleeping under bridges, sleeping in alleyways, people's stoops, anywhere I could lay my head, when I could lay my head. Because sometimes I would use for days and not sleep. I literally at one point weighed maybe 115 pounds soaking wet. Probably my boots weighed maybe 60 pounds of that. My socks probably stood up by themselves. I didn't bathe for months. I could smell myself. My meals consisted of a bag of chips and a Huggy juice, them Huggy little juices. And God forbid that I didn't have enough for the juice. It was either or. Because I had to get my drugs first. I put myself in some precarious situations. I did some things that I couldn't even say I'm proud of. I hurt a lot of people physically because I needed the next one. And that's what it was all about, the next one. And that's where it took me. I also wind up overdosing 3 separate times. And it was somebody in the community that saved my life. And I always wondered why. But today I know why. And I never knew who it was. I never said thank you. I would wake up from the Narcan and just go out and get high again. Again, I put myself in precarious situations where I was in a car and I was going to do something I wasn't supposed to do. And unfortunately, the guy that was sitting in the car with me, somebody was looking for him, and I was caught in a drive-by shooting and hit multiple times with bullets. I wind up getting out of the car. I was hit 7 times. The driver, the guy that was with me, was hit twice and died. I don't know how I wound up in the hospital, but somebody in the community wrapped me in a blanket and took me to the hospital. I had multiple surgeries. I had to learn how to write again. I had my arm. I had to learn how to walk again. My legs were riddled with bullets. And it was really bad. At one, I didn't think I was going to make it. And again, somebody in the community saved my life. And I believe God always played a big part in that. So those are a lot of those things that kept on happening. So I wind up getting caught in an indictment in the area. And I wind up going to federal prison Unfortunately, it looked like I was graduating from county to state to federal. And it was crazy because I was sitting in federal prison, continuing using in prison, right? And on my sentence date, I'm standing in front of the judge, right? And here this judge is talking to me, listen, you got this record like a mile long, your jacket, your file, I can use it as a ladder, and you I don't know what to do with you. You done got every break we could give you in the court system. You're a career criminal. You done, the 3-strike rule didn't count with me. I was fouling off the 3rd strike like 4 or 5 times. They were tired of me. And he asked me, why shouldn't I put you away for the rest of your life? But listen, while he was talking to me, I was toning him out. I was saying in my mind, listen, would you hurry up? In my mind, would you hurry up? I'm trying to get back to the prison to get out of here. That's what I was thinking of when he was telling me all of this. Right? And then he told me to speak, and the lawyer was like, you got something to say? Yeah, I gotta get out of here. There's nothing I can say. What could I say? All I thought about was getting high. Right? So, I wind up getting sentenced. I wind up getting 10 years. And in federal time, you do about 8.5. So, the first 6.5 I used. And I tell you, this is the mindset that I had. Man, I'm going to federal prison. Better drugs. Better quality of drugs in it. I could be high for months, for years. That's how I thought. The only time I used to contact my mom was when I was in prison to tell her, I need some money. Can you send me some money? Not high. I would call her collect. And my mom loved me. She did everything she could for me. And I abused that relationship because my substance use disorder was more important. It was more important at that moment. My kids were growing up. It was more important than them. It was more important than me. That's where I was at in my life. The choices that I made, was my mind being clouded and my substance use disorder growing, and I couldn't make any type of decisions, So I wind up in prison, and while I was in prison, like I told you, first 6.5 years, so I'm going toward my tail end of prison, and I wind up getting a cellmate, right? And this cellmate, every day I used to see him, right? And I used to get high just to sit in the cell and watch people and goof off on them and everything. But this guy, he was sitting down, and he was looking at pictures. Every day I would see him look at pictures and crying. And one day, I must have been, I don't know what was going on in my mind. I said, yo, come on, man, you gotta stop crying, man. Come on, man, you're a grown man, come on, man. Come on, you know what you did. And I'm going in on him, He's like, come on. Yo, at one point I said, you're blowing my high, man. Come on, you gotta do better. So I even went to the sergeant, you gotta change my cell. You know what I mean? I'm somebody that can't cry, that don't cry. So at one point I asked him, I said, yo, why are you crying so much looking at these pictures? I can see somebody getting emotional. Come on, man. And he said, I look at these pictures every day. This is how I'm watching my kids grow up. Because I will never see them again, spend time with them. I'm doing life in prison. And I tell you, that thing hit me hard. I was like, whoa. I started to think, this ain't right. And that night I wound up going to bed, and I woke up with this sense of, I don't want to be like that. So instead of getting high, I walked over to the counselor's office and I said, I need some help. I need some help right now. And they put me on a unit where they helped me with my mental health and my substance use disorder. First and then I had to go to the hospital, detox. I prayed and got on my knees and asked God, please just remove this from me. Give me the opportunity to do your will, right? Because I'm tired of doing mine, right? And I had this sense that I really wanted to give back. It was something in my heart. I said I wanted to give back. And I worked really hard to work on the core of my addiction, which was my father's loss. You know, trying to accept that, trying to really say, okay, you know, that's life. You know, he lived his purpose on here in earth. And I had to understand that. And I had to read the Bible, and I had, you know, accepting the Lord Jesus as my Savior was another big step. Because I was Catholic, I grew up Catholic, right? And we said, and you know, I always said, I got to tell him my sins, but I don't think there's enough time. This priest playing, and he might need some mental health work after I'm done, right? So I was like, there's got to be another way. You know what I mean? And a lot of times I sat down on my knees and prayed and said, God, this is going to be a while, you know, but I need you. And he continued to open doors for me. And my heart felt so much different, and I had so much, not conviction anymore. It wasn't conviction anymore. It was like, you know what, you're going to find out what I got in store for you. And I left prison, right? And I wound up going into a recovery house, right? I didn't go to no family's house. I didn't go nowhere. I said I wanted to be independent. I went into a recovery house, right? And in this recovery house, I wound up doing everything that I needed to do, put nice structure in there. And the owner, after a couple months, seen something in me. And I say it was God that he seen, you know what I mean? Because I stayed going to church, I found a church and this thing. And he gave me my first job. And it was a nighttime resident manager, right? So here's my first job. I got a job now, doing good. It was like nighttime security. I was like top flight security. And here I go with flashlight, walk around, making sure everybody's in the bed. Yo, if you don't get that out my face, hey, watch it. God loves you. And I go around, and let me tell you something. I love that job. It was my first job ever, right? So after a couple months, right, the owner, he was in the office, and he said, hey, listen, man. Great job what you're doing. I said, thank you so much, man. Thank you. And he's seen more in me. He said, do you know anything about computers? And I said, sir, the only thing I know about computers is where to pawn them or where to sell them. That's all I know. And he was like, are you serious? I said, unfortunately, yeah. He sat me down. He showed me how to turn on a computer, how to work it, and really do some things. And he gave me a better job. I started to be the manager of the place. He said, I see something in you. And I was like, I'm glad you see something. Right? So I was there. I really enjoyed it. And it was there that I met people from the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disabilities, which is DBHI. And they had this program called the Certified Peer Specialist. And they had a training. And I applied for this training, right? And you had to go to an interview. It was like a panel interview. So I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting for this interview. And there's 3 other people that's going into this interview. And I hear them talking and saying, man, this is like my 4th time trying to get into this class. This is my 5th time, and I'm like, are you serious? This is my 5th. I'm not going to get this. I'm not going to. And I even started to question God. Yo, why you set me up like this? Right? And right before I almost made the decision to leave, they called me in for the interview. I said, So I go into the interview and I tell them, you know, my desires and what I want to do in my life, how my life. And I tell you, there were all the tissue boxes were empty in there. And most of it was me. Because I was a mess. So, right? And I wind up getting back to the recovery house, and I got a letter a week later saying that I was accepted into this class, right? And that class changed my life even more. I was in a room, in a classroom, just like this, with 20 other people that were just like me. Recovering with mental health challenges, some with substance use disorder. And I thought I was the only one on this earth that was going through something like that. And I was like, are you serious? And the more I heard the stories, I was like, oh my God, I ain't that bad. You know? And I said, it's okay. So people do recover, right? So at the graduation, right, I never forget, when I graduated, I was offered 5 different jobs. I mean, like really good quality jobs, right? And I was old school. I'm old school. I believe in loyalty. You know what I mean? You do for me, I'm here for you. And I was really old school. And I didn't want to leave the recovery house. I was like, no, man, I owe this guy a lot. I can't walk away from him. They were offering me double what he was giving me, and benefits, better access card. Really? And this and this, and I was like, wow. So I sat down with him, and he told me, he said, yo, man, what are you doing? I said, what you mean? He said, it's time for you to go. I said, what did I do wrong? What you doing? What did I do wrong? Because I'm always feeling guilty about something. So, yo, what I doing? And he was like, there's time for another chapter in your life. I prayed on it, and I took a job at the Community Behavioral Health, CBH, as a certified peer specialist. Now listen how God works. This job was for me to go back into the community where I was at and help people get services. Try to get people to get into treatment. And I said, whoa. So the first, I had a little badge, you know, work for CBH, you know, I had my ID, and I had a laptop with a badge. I was like, man, I've arrived, right? I went into the neighborhood trying to connect people, and people would see me that I used to get high with and be like, yo, right? And they would look at my badge and my name and they said, Ramon, who the hell is that? And I said, it's my government name. He said, no, man, what you doing? They thought I was scared or something. I was like, no, I'm trying to help. Help me? Give me a couple hours then. I was like, no, y'all want to get into treatment? Treatment? And I was like, yeah, man, listen, man. I'm telling you, get your life together. I was able to help some people, right? Then there was times that I would walk through the drug corners and I see some of the drug dealers that I burned or maybe stole from. Be like, yo! I'd be like, yo, man, I don't do that. I mean, I ain't got no money. I'm broke. And they was like, and some of them said, yo, you look great, man. Keep up the good work. And that was God. I always say that was God. God put a hedge of protection over me because God knows, man, I owed a lot of money in the street. You know? He put me back in that place, right? So I always say 10 is my favorite number, right? 10 months later, I got promoted into a position, and the position was assistant to the special liaison to the deputy commissioner. And this position was going around the media, speaking with media events, doing exactly this, traveling, going to different spots and talking about my experience. I wound up, going to Florida, speaking to the sheriffs out there. Went to California, San Diego. I went different places, right? I also had a documentary done on me by Fox 29, Lucy Nolan. And I tell you, things were changing in my life, right? And sometimes when things like that, right, and you don't acknowledge God, ego and pride get in the way, right? And I could see my head getting bigger. Fitted hats didn't fit no more. I had to get snapbacks because, it was bad. And I loved that job. I really did. But again, I felt like, here I go, I arrived, right? And not being humble enough. 10 months later, I was asked to move into another position, which was overseeing an initiative in Kensington called the Kensington Storefront, right? It was right across the street from Rock Ministries. It used to be across the street from Rock Ministries. And just to tell y'all, right, Rock Ministries, I love Rock Ministries. Pastor Buddy is my buddy. Ramon, the other Ramon, if y'all see him, I'm the real Ramon. He's power. I love him very much, but I always tell him, when I talk to people and y'all see him, tell him y'all met the real Ramon. So anyway, I was looking at, and that initiative was overseeing some peers, right? And the peers would help people connected to some services, right? And in that position, it was really good. It was my first time overseeing anything. And I didn't really know if I could do it. I questioned myself. But again, God shows up, right? And I continue to be humble. And I would ask my pastor, I said, I don't know what's going on, but man, I'm staying on this ride. Because I like this ride, And he said, God ain't done with you yet. He ain't done with you yet. And my pastor is, my pastor and me, I got him on speed dial. Sometimes I wonder if he just lets it go to message, because I always calling him for support. And I'll tell you, I was in that position for a while, and the department had some big things in store for me, and the city of Philadelphia wound up stepping up and offering me a huge job. I oversee several teams in the city of Philadelphia now. We go out and we connect people to services, wellness-related resources. We have a team in District 7, Council District 7, which is Kensington. That is my main team. I have a team in Council District 1, which is South Philadelphia Center City. We have a team in Council District 5, 9, and 10. I sometimes look back and I said, whoa, it's a lot, right? I went from, and these are things that I see in my life, right? Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think, right, that I would have an office, right? Mm-hmm. My mom always said, I see you, right, in a suit in an office. And I said, Mom, are you getting high? You know what I mean? And I don't see that in my day. And it come to fruition. Not only do I have a community office, I have a center city office, right? And that's just telling you where I'm at. Where things have come out in my life, right? My children are in my life today. My son is taking a wrong path and he's in jail, but I was able to get him some short time because he was looking at a lot of time. And I spoke to his judge at his sentencing. And the judge listened to me for once, and gave him a break, right? The women that were in my life, my kids' children, my kids' moms, they forgive me. I'm a big part of their life, even though they have moved on. But we're the little girl that called me a sperm donor, she's my biggest fan. She's a registered nurse today. Unfortunately, she's going to leave Philadelphia. She was offered a huge job in South Carolina. She just told me this a while ago, and it breaks my heart because I have my grandson, right? And I'm a big part of my grandson's life, right? But those are the things that happen. 2 years ago, I was appointed into the Mayor's Commission of Addiction and Recovery. I am the only Latino out of 12 commissioners. I am one of the commissioners on that. I was also on the Mayor's Opiate Task Force and the Governor's Task Force. And those are things, you know, hard work pays off, but also lining up. Stay lined up. That's something that I just really, I acknowledge him. He gets all the credit today. He gets all the credit, and I really, really mean that. I work hard, but he puts me in that position. You know, and I acknowledge that. I never forget that. Right? Last year was a tough year. Right? Everybody, it's pandemic and everything, right? I worked through the whole pandemic, right? I worked at a quarantine site, and my family, my daughter was like, "Are you crazy?" And I was like, "People need help.
Yep.
People need help." I helped Esperanza and Rock Ministries merge and make a testing site, which was great in that community. Giving back to that community that gave to me, right? And I felt so good about that. I continued to work outreach, and that was starting in March when we closed. October came, and I wound up getting a little call. I was like, that didn't sound right. I don't feel right. I went home that day. The next morning I woke up, got a little worse. So I went to the hospital. We got tested and I was positive for COVID. Thank God, because my mental health was really, really compromised. I didn't know. I said, I'm going to die. I hope not. So I went home, and that morning I woke up with 105 fever. And I couldn't get out of bed. My significant other came and she was like, I'm gonna call the hospital. And I said, no, leave me right here. I was so delirious. I said, leave me here, my dad's coming to get me. That's where I was at. I was so delirious. Thank God she called my cousin. My cousin kind of threw me over his back, took me to the hospital. I spent a month in the hospital fighting for my life. There were some good days, there were some bad days. I wound up going to the ICU, being put on the ventilator. At one point, they called my family and said, you might want to make some preparations. They didn't think I was going to make it. And I say that to say, how good is God, right? How good is God? I was sitting in a room by myself, didn't know what was going to happen, trying to breathe, couldn't breathe or nothing. Every organ in my body was failing, and I still held on. The only thing I wanted was a Bible, and really wanted to just pray. Everybody would call me. I had so much support. And all I would ask people was pray. Just pray. Just pray. For whatever outcome comes, pray. And I kept on believing that God, he wasn't going to be there. Day before Thanksgiving, I was sent home. I came home to be with my family for Thanksgiving. Might be the best Thanksgiving I ever had. Not a lot of people came to my house. I wasn't allowed to. I was still on oxygen because I couldn't breathe. I was still needed the oxygen. But I had so many people stop in front of my house, it was like a drive-through, dropping off food. And that's love. In January of this year, I stopped using the oxygen and went right back to work. And my mental health was compromised. I had to go back to therapy and really work. It was rough. The physical was not as much as the mental, right? Because I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I had colleagues and family members die, right? I mean, like days after they got the COVID, and I hear the news, and then you hear the news, and all you see is all these people dying. Am I going to be that statistic? But my faith in God was there, right? And I say that, right, because today, I work for the managing director. I have close contact with a lot of city officials, and I'm able to help people, right? And I don't forget where I come from, right? So I know some of y'all are working in the Kensington area, and you work with a population that is really, really suffering, right? And I know in your heart you have good intentions and everything. I know it because you wouldn't be doing this, right? And I want you to understand, right, that person that you see under that bridge, or maybe in that alley, or disheveled, that was me. That was me, right? And somebody took a chance on me and saved my life, right? But I also want you to understand that that's someone's child. That's someone's mom. That's someone's dad. And if it was yours, what would you do? Would you love them? Or would you say, And I want you to understand that the stigma of substance use disorder and mental health, right? We need to really work on that. Because there's people out here suffering. And somebody, those people out there, they didn't wake up and say, I want to be an addict when I grow up. Those are God's children, and they're just going through a rough time and don't know how to go about it. So, I just need you to understand that. Really, really understand that. Thank you so much for the work that y'all do. It's amazing that, what y'all do. You're doing God's work. This is what God put you on this earth to do. To love. Right? Treat others as you want to be treated. I never forget that. And yeah, I live in Kensington, it's rough. I walked out the other day and somebody was dying right on my step. But I didn't step aside and say, listen, I gotta get to work. No, because I do God's work first. Right? And I'm really centered about that. I really do. I know probably y'all hear a lot about that. That's really, truly in my heart. So thank you so much. I wish you all the luck. If you ever need it, I'm out there. Also, the teams are out there. Please feel free to use me as a resource. I have a lot of resources that maybe somebody might want something. Ramon, I know the other Ramon has a lot of resources, but we also help him and support him. Please feel free. I have some cards. I don't know if I have enough, but you can take a picture of it. Feel free to call me. If I don't answer, please leave a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
I have a feeling that several people have questions.
Yeah, any questions? Feel free. I'm very transparent, as y'all see. Anybody?
Quickly go, guys, because this is your
Yeah,
opportunity.
my question is, why is it getting worse? What's driving that?
So we have a lot of drugs on. It's a big demand on drugs. Philadelphia, unfortunately, has one of the highest rates of purity in heroin, right? But also now you have this fentanyl craze. So, a lot of the drug dealers, right? Instead of buying a kilo of heroin, which might cost them $100,000, they'll buy $25,000 fentanyl and get the same effect and make more money. So demand is out there. a lot of people are sick and suffering. Trauma, especially after the pandemic, has exacerbated substance use disorder. And there's many things that has caused that. And with the drugs that's out there now, polysubstance, you also have people using horse tranquilizer. Cut the drugs, right? And you'll see people with open wounds, really big open wounds. A lot of that is the substances that they're putting into the drugs. Many people just feel like they're stuck. And the behavioral health system, is trying to get better, but they need to get better. And I say that, and I work there. Please don't say that to me. Cut that off. Don't say that to my boss. But yeah, it does. And that's why we have a lot of people that are suffering. A lot of people, and people are using the same gateway. They don't want to suffer just like I did, and they want to use and not feel that pain. Anybody else?
The increase, I think there's increased physical numbers of people out there. So just post-COVID trauma, stuff not getting dealt with, and just, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, from your experience and like seeing all this on the ground, like being part of this, what do you feel like are the best policies and the best programs, and like what should we as like voting citizens be, voting into, like, I guess how do you think we should approach this on like a systems level, and like what sort of, like who would you be voting for? That's not the right question. Not exactly who you'd be voting for, but like what sort of policies and programs do you feel like it's important to be supporting, and which things do you think don't work as well and like are false hopes?
And I'll say this, right? Policies and procedures, they come from the state, right?
Right.
We all know about MAT here, medical assisted treatment. There's a variety of them. I think that helps also. One of the things that I tell my team, right? And I try to be really specific when you engage with somebody. I don't like pushing recovery on anybody. Listen, you need to get help, you need to get help. They kind of know that, right? They might just need somebody to listen to them. They might just need somebody. I hear you, I'm here. Our team is focused on building relationships instead of trying to push treatment down it. That person might need something else. He might need an ID. He might need housing. He might need something that might move him towards, you know what, it's time for me to get help, right? I call a lot of the teams that I'm on, they're just a ray of hope. And when you tell somebody what you understand what they're going through, it means a lot. You get a lot of their attention, right? Policies and procedures need to be ever changing. And I say this, right, because they need to be sustainable, right? The cookie cutter approaches need to be changed. They need to be more person-centered. That's just me speaking. So if you ever see me running, please vote for me. But they need to be more person-centered. It's about the individual, right? Because we go into treatment centers, right? And it's this cookie cutter approach. Everybody gets the same class. But I'm going through something different than you, and you, and you. Right? We all use drugs. But what caused us? We need to get to the core of these addictions. And how can we help that? So that's just me. That's what I believe. And it has to start from the top. You can put a lot of money into something, but it has to be effective. And we have to also learn that when something don't go right, scrap it and let's start something new. Let's stop trying to make something go right and we continue to lose time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
How does the behavioral health department work with like overdose prevention sites, like Prevention Point or Safe Houses alike?
What do you, I didn't understand.
Oh, how does like the behavioral health department, does it work in conjunction with like Prevention Point or places like that?
So harm reduction.
Yeah.
Harm reduction is big. But sometimes, listen, and this is me, this is my personal view of things, sometimes harm reduction can be enabling someone. And I say that was me that said it, right? I'm not saying the city said it or something like that. That's my view. Sometimes, right, somebody's in substance use disorder and he's suffering and stuff, and you come to him and you tell him, let's get you into treatment. You know what? And this is me, I've gotten people to say, why should I go to treatment? I get a 10 out here, I get food, I get free drugs. Why should I go to somewhere where I don't know what's going to happen? I'm okay in this dysfunction because I grew up in dysfunction. And I'm around people that are just like me. We're all dysfunctional. Why should I go to treatment and get myself together? Because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to know the real me. You understand? And that happens. It happens. So in saying what you say, there's a lot of people doing some great work. Prevention Point is doing some great work. Harm reduction is harm reduction. As for overdose prevention sites, you know, that's something that they need to work on. I think they try to go into it too fast without trying to really know what it's about. There's other ways to go about things. Any other questions? Yeah.
So just kind of, I don't know, practical, or maybe it's just curiosity, ignorance. Like, where are all these drugs coming from, and how does somebody who's just living on the streets, how can you continue to afford that?
Okay, so the drugs, a lot of fentanyl comes from Mexico, China. A lot of our drugs come from ports, right? And, you know, some people, they know, listen, I'm gonna tell you something, somebody with substance use disorder is very, very smart. Very, very smart, all right? And it takes a really, really smart person to survive out there, right? Any type of way that they need is necessary to get the drug. And I'm gonna say this, the government didn't help this year in giving all that money.
Yeah. Ramon, thank you. Sorry.
You know, there was a lot of money that was given out, and it caused a lot of harm. The government really wanted it, thinking they could help people, but it caused a lot of people a lot of harm. So, you know, the money's all, and listen, the drug dealers are very smart. Listen, I think they should go to, what is the Wharton Business School? You know what I mean? Because they're ever changing. They're ever changing.
Very nimble.
Yes. Listen, I was one of them, so I know.
Incredible.
Listen, they know how to get, listen, they started putting fentanyl in marijuana. Now, some people, y'all know marijuana is considered a gateway drug, right? A lot of the teenagers like to test that little, you know, puff on that, pass it, puff, pass it. You know what I mean? The drug dealers have found a way to put it in marijuana. So now you got, and you'll see it, if y'all in Kensington, y'all see people, they might look like 13, 14, 15 years old out there. And then what happened was, they got caught up, smoking a little weed, puffing, and not passing it, right? And now they have an addiction. And now they're growing into bigger things. So the drug dealers, they put fentanyl on everything. You know?
They're trying to make addicts. They're making future
Exactly.
customers.
Exactly. You know, it's a demand. Supply and demand. Anybody else?
I think, like, just one thing, just comment, is this a very sophisticated business? It's not just some guy who decided to try to make a little profit on its own. It's big, like.
It's $1 million
It's a
business.
multi-million-dollar business that's coming internationally, it's working with locals, it's working with, like, layers and layers of men with you know, different, everybody has different roles and assigned and different pay structures. I mean, it's a very sophisticated business. It's not just like some guy in the street who happens to be selling something.
And you know, and that ties into a lot of the violence that we see, and it ties into a lot of our children, right? Because what happens is the mom and pop is not home. Father might be in jail, mother might be using. This child is thrusted into being a parent. He's not working at McDonald's, right? He's not flipping no burgers. He's flipping drugs because he can make $100 in a couple minutes, and he can take care of his house. Now we have a child that's out there selling drugs, right, and gets caught up because drugs and guns come together, and that's where our violence is playing a role now. You know, and we're losing our children. Our children are not going to school, dropping out. We see it. We see it. You know, and they're being incarcerated. You know, so it plays a big role. Yes.
I don't know what Pennsylvania has for laws, because I'm not from here, but I know a lot of states are moving towards like drug courts instead of just like throwing people in jail for drugs as much and trying to like get them in programs. Do you think that that's like a better way in general to go about it instead of just like putting people in jail for buying drugs?
Philadelphia has so many programs in the prisons now, where you could go treatment in the prisons. You know, and I say this, right? Prison saved my life, right? But you might have some people that say you can't arrest your way out of this. And I say that because as we dealt with civil unrest, right? We've seen a lot of people go to prison that were minorities and were given mandatory sentences, right? Here you got a guy that sold, he had 100 pounds of marijuana, and he gets 3 to 6 months, and this guy got caught with 2 crack vials, selling 2 crack vials, and he gets a mandatory sentence of 5 years. So it's really careful. It's a very fine line. So, you know, I just think there has to be several entities of things, not just one thing. I think you need to bring several things to the table and have options of how we're going to deal with this. I don't think it's a drug court that's going to do it, or Suboxone, or Methadone. I think it's a combination of things if we could get some things together and give people options, because some people are just not going to try that. You know, I work under the police assisted diversion unit, right? Which gives a person a chance, instead of going to jail, if they have a misdemeanor crime, instead of going to jail, they give them the option to go to treatment. That's a good thing, I think. And the diversions also are self-referrals. People can go and say, listen, my son needs some help. A mom can bring a child. You know. So I think just a variety of things can help. Anybody else? Thank you so much again. Thank you so much. Yes.
How can we pray for you? And get ready.
Prayer is always good. Please always pray. Pray for the city. Pray for the city. Pray for a hedge of protection, for some guidance for our city officials to make the right choices. But also, you know, I'm going to be praying for y'all, you know, the work that you do, and pray for the people that are doing that work out there. It's not easy. I live in the community. I feel my job is a 24/7 job. It's not a 9 to 5. Because I'll help some. I could be driving and I'll see somebody, I'll jump out. Sometimes I go, yo, you're not working no more. I'm always working. You know. So always, please, just prayer for everyone. Okay.
Would any of the native Philadelphians in the room, I know there's a few, want to pray for Ramon and for Philadelphia?
Oh, pray for you, Sid.
I think I'd like to work with you, if you don't mind. If you got your hearts in there. Dear God, thank you for allowing us once again to have opportunities to hear from this community. people representing this community, leading this community, supporting it. God, it's such a amazing, we just sit in awe and wonder to see how you work. Because you truly work not just to remind ourselves of your glory, but always working for our good and for your good. God, we are so thankful to have Ramon here with us today, to share his testimony, to share what he has learned, to remind us how you have been faithful in his trials and tribulations, and how through those trials and tribulations he's truly walked away with steadfastness to you, Lord. We are thankful to see that and hear that testimony and to be encouraged by your great works. God, we look at the city. We've seen so much of the city. We've seen so much of the people that make it up, especially within these communities. And I'm sure we are all so thankful to see the beauty, to see the diversity, to see your creation, right? What a great thing it is, and how intentional it is. God, this city is, this world, it's a broken place. It's filled with pain, it's filled with suffering. We are desperately in need of a Savior. We are in desperate need for you. God, humble our hearts. Allow us to walk in humbleness. To be slow to speak and quick to listen. To act always with compassion and forgiveness. And to always reciprocate the grace, the abundant grace and mercy you give to us each day, to everyone that we meet out into this world. As we still go on in these next 2 weeks, let us remember the words of every speaker, the words of Ramon today. Let us hold fast to it. And let's hold fast to your words and your promises, for they are so sure. And we are so grateful for your faithfulness in us as we remain faithful in you. Let's see you work. Let's be patient and be still. God, we love you, and in all the things we ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you.
So I also want to leave y'all with this, right? Out of every title that I have, that I've had, the biggest title that I have is today I'm a son to my mom. You know? Always remember you. You know what I mean? I always remember that. Thank you again.